going to give it 1 more minute, but
I'll give it 1 more minute. But yeah, so essentially, welcome back to, well, not welcome back. To those names I recognize, welcome back to another Set Starters webinar. Essentially, you should know what Set Starters is about by now. For those who are new and probably are part of my group chat or see me spamming Facebook groups, essentially Set Starters is just a document of information for anyone wanting to get into the film and TV industry. We do help as much as we can to push you into the right directions, into the right pathways where you want to go. We're always expanding by having webinars like this with professionals and with organizations like BECTU and the Film and TV Charity and the TV Carers Club for people who look after any autistic children or parents or anyone that are in care. Essentially, today is going to be about BECTU, and BECTU is a brilliant union which everyone should join, because once you're all unionized, there's more opportunities in the future that they can help us with, rather than it's hard being in the freelance. So I'm going to let Jess really explain that, so I'm going to pass you over to Jess.
Thanks, Joe. Hi, everyone. My name is Jess, as you can see from the screen and from underneath my name. I am an organising official. I work for the trade union BECTU. An organising official basically means I do 2 things primarily. One is the official bit means that I help people with their issues at work. So if someone is a member of the union and they have an issue at work, they can come to me and say, help, I have this going on. And the organising bit is about collective power, which I will talk about a bit. But it's essentially about getting people together to talk about their what's going on in their workplace and how they can improve it. I work for BECTU, who are the trade union for film and TV freelancers, and also anyone who works in any creative industry. But because we're talking about film and TV today, which is the bit of the union I work in, that's what I'm going to focus on. So, it's not going to let me move on, is it? There we go. So normally when I do this talk in person, I ask people to tell me what they think a trade union is. But if any of you want to unmute, if you have any ideas, what do you think a trade union is, or what a trade union does? I'm going to give you a couple of secs.
Hi there, it's Murray here.
Hi Murray, what do you think?
It's effectively a place whereby I guess in the simplest form, it's where people have a voice, and you work together to kind of give yourself a voice, whether it's in politics or an organization or what that may be, and you work together towards a shared goal.
Absolutely. I love when people give the collective power answer rather than the insurance policy answer, but that's also good. This is great. Fantastic. Well done, Murray. Top points. So here's the very dry definition. It is an organised association of workers in a trade, group of trades or profession formed to protect and further their rights and interests. But that is the dry definition. I like this picture better. I think it illustrates it better. So on the right hand side there, you've got sort of a suited executive representing a company, whatever kind of company. He's got all of these blocks underneath him that are corporate structure and employers associations and company experts, and he's also got lawyers and HR behind him. He's got all these people behind him, so he's tall up there. If you look at the guy on the left, they are without the union, without the people underneath it, that person is down at the bottom. They're not on an equal footing, but because all of those people are together, they are the union. They are making up a group of people. They're putting them on a more equal footing. So the point of unions is collective power. We all work together to make things better for people at work. So I think that illustrates it better than the dry definition. But the Trades Union Congress, who are the union of unions, they are a big group we all belong to and we do things together. They say when a group of workers act and speak together, their employer has to listen. That's how unions make things better at work. So if you have a large number of people all working in the same place or in the same profession who all get together, or as many as possible who are working in that profession get together and all speak with one voice about the issues that are affecting them, it's much more likely that some change will occur. I like to do a little bit of history of like stuff that's happened, stuff that wouldn't have happened without unions. This is going to be another audience participation moment. Anything you can think of that has been a union achievement over the last, I think it's around about 100 years. It might be slightly more than 100 years, but I think it's about 100 years. There are probably no wrong answers. They are things that we have that people take for granted, but wouldn't realize were union achievements. Don't worry if you don't know. I will give them to you in a sec. I'll give you an example. 2-day weekends. Without unions, there would not be 2-day weekends. And I know in some professions, and particularly in creative industries, that you don't always have a 2-day weekend, but the default used to be that you just worked. Sometimes people had Sundays because it was the day you went to church, but no 2-day weekends. I'm going to give you some more 8-hour working days. So or limited working days, basically, not just work as many hours as you like. People can tell you to work as many hours as they like. You don't have to have breaks. Maternity leave, retirement ages, occupational health and safety, a pretty important one for the film and TV industry. Workplace pensions, paid holidays. Now, quality laws is one that I will come back to because that is very important for film and TV freelancers. The right not to be sacked because you got married or had a baby or became ill. That's a relatively recent achievement. Like we're not talking 100 years ago. We're talking much more recently than that. Pay increases, minimum wage. That's an important one for everybody. Not being paid like 2p an hour. Collective bargaining, so that's a union thing where unions can go into workplaces and say we are bargaining on behalf of all of these people, and the right for working people to organise themselves. So for you, the right for you to come together and work together towards change. These are all things that have been achieved by people being members of unions. So talking a little bit about TV and film, you probably know all these things. A lot of people are freelance, self-employed workers in the industry. There's often a lot of travel involved, these kinds of things, and long hours, but I'm sure you know that. Long hours. But what does it mean to be a freelancer? So this is something that we work with freelancers a lot in the union. Most people who are members of the union who work in film and TV are freelance. They work for themselves, or they are not a full-time employee. For example, I am an employee. I work for BECTU. I have a permanent contract with them. That's what I am. I'm an employee. For most people in the film and TV industry, they're either self-employed or they're in short-term contracts or fixed-term contracts or like engagement, those kinds of things. So we know from experience the issues you come up against as a freelancer. So this slide is going to give you some what I think are positives of being a freelancer, and then some things to think about. I don't like to call them negatives because they're not necessarily negatives, but they are things to consider, and they are flip sides of each other. So when I go through the positives, you might be like, yeah, but I will get to the things to think about for each of them in a minute. So positives, this is the things that people say about working for yourself, about being a freelancer. You're in control. You decide what you do. You decide which jobs you take. You decide when you want to work. You decide what you want, what kind of training you want to do. CPD, you might hear a lot, that's continuing professional development. Hopefully I haven't put any acronyms in there that I haven't explained, but if there are any, then let me know, because I think it's very unhelpful when people put acronyms and then they don't explain what they mean. So continuing professional development, that basically means any training that is relevant to your world of work. You keep, stuff that new stuff that you learn in order to be better at your job, basically. But you decide what kind of professional development you want to do. For example, for me, as an employee, my employer will tell me, you have to do, cybersecurity training, for example. You have to do that on this day or by this date because everyone in the organization is doing it. If I said, for my professional development, I think I want to go and learn pottery, my employer might say, good for you, but you have to do that. We're not going to pay for that. But if you're deciding, if you're a freelancer, you're deciding what kinds of things you want to do. yeah, you can decide which direction your career is going in. Again, if you're an employee in a particular place and you say, oh, I'd quite like to try this thing, if that's not part of the place you work, or if that's not part of your job or part of something that they can do, they might go, no, that's not part of your job. Whereas if you work for yourself, you can go, oh, do you know what, I might go and do this kind of job that that I've not done before, because that's something that interests me and I have some of the skills and all that kind of stuff. Money, you negotiate your rate. You're not necessarily being told, this is the salary of this position, because in the traditional sort of way that jobs are advertised, it's not going to say this is the salary necessarily. It might be negotiable, and you choose when you work. You can take the jobs that you want to take. Now, I'm sure some of you are going, hang on, that's not true. Here are the other sides. Things to think about. So yes, you are in control. You decide what you do, but you are also your own HR person. You're your own brand promoter. You're your logistics person. You're your finance manager. You're everything to yourself, because you work for yourself primarily. You've got to do all of that. You've got to do networking. You've got to do, promote yourself. Keep your website up to date if you have a website. Keep any kind of see. Oh, there we go. Can you hear me again now? It told me I'd lost my network connection. Great, cool. Where was I? Yes, so if you want to do any training, then you're going to have to pay for it, and it's unlikely that you'll be paid while you're doing that. It's now not going to let me move on, is it? There we go. For career development, you are going to have to be aware of technological and craft developments and what the industry needs. I usually use the example, I used to be a lighting technician. I had to keep up with any sort of new technology that was coming in, new lights, new new effects, any kind of thing that was new. I had to keep on top of those things, because if I went to a job and was like, oh, I don't know what that does, I don't know how to work that, that's not going to look so good. So you need to be on top of these kinds of things, anything that's changing in the industry, anything that is really relevant that they're going to say, oh, I really need you to be learning this, to know this. Thinking about money, you need to understand what might change your rate. Is there an increased demand? Do you have particular skills that this production needs? Has inflation gone up? Has the cost of living gone up? All these kinds of things. You need to be aware of all those kinds of things. And it's what we call, on the one hand, yeah, you work when you decide, but realistically, if you haven't had a job for 3 months, you're going to take a job that comes up. You're not going to be like, it's what we call in the trade union movement precarious employment. It means that you don't necessarily know where your next job is coming from, and you might have uneven income, which means you might, for 3 months you might have be paid really well, but then you might, for 3 months have no work, and you're going to have to work out like a budget based on those things. You might get paid leave, but you might not. Like a lot of contracts, you get your holiday paid at the end. You should be able to take it, but it's like it's sort of one of those things where you should get the pay for it at the end if you don't get to take it. But it's not like being an employee where you have X number of days of holiday and you can take them usually whenever you like. It's a bit more complicated than that, and it depends on the engagement about whether you get that holiday or not. So there's a whole sorry, it keeps dropping out. Can you hear me again? Someone give me a thumbs up. Thank you, Louis. Right, here are some of the things that we know. Come on. This is not going well. I'm going to connect to a different network and see if that helps. There we go. Okay, so these are some of the things we do as a union. We do campaigns. Campaigns are, I'll come back to and give you a bit more detail, but they're basically issues that members have told us about that they want to make some noise about and try and change things in the industry. And I'll give you some examples in a minute. We also have agreements, which all of these things I'll give you examples of in a minute, but we produce agreements and guides and policies. So guides will be things like we've got a guide to tax for freelancers. Policies are things like we've got a template welfare policy that productions can take wholesale and go, oh, we don't have to think about this. We've got a template, we can just use that. The agreements are things that set out minimum terms and conditions. I will come back to those in a bit because those are important. Tax, we can help you with tax. Like I said, we have the freelance tax guide. We can give you information about how to work out employment status and all that kind of stuff. Contract advice. If you get a contract and you see a clause and you go, oh, I don't know if that should be in there, or what does that mean? You can, if you're a member of the union, you can email us and we can explain it to you, or we can say, oh yeah, that's an interesting one. You might want to ask them about that. My number one piece of advice for everyone is when you get a contract, read the contract. The number of people we get saying, oh, they're doing this, and we read the contract and we go, yeah, it's in your contract. Read the contract before you start the job and before you sign it. If you don't sign it, but you start the job and you haven't said, oh, I don't agree with this, and you're not in discussion about a particular clause or something, you're usually deemed to have accepted those terms because you've started the job and you haven't said anything about it. So even if it's not signed, if you started working on the job, they're going to say, well, you're under this contract. So read the contract when you get it. That's my number one top tip. But we can give you advice on contracts. What else have we got here? Rates. I will show you a rate card in a minute, but we can give advice on rates and much more. We do all sorts of other things, and I'm going to get to a few of them in a minute. This, I usually go quickly through this, but it's just to explain a little bit about how trade unions are structured, and this is particularly how BECTU is structured. We're part of a bigger union that's called Prospect. We're a sector of it, but it operates like a separate thing within it. So we have members, so people who work in the industry who are members of the trade union, who pay to be part of the trade union, and those members are organized into what we call branches. Now I'll come to branches in a minute, but essentially it's groups of people who in BECTU, it's groups of people who do the same thing, but I'll come back to that in a sec. Those branches all have committees who run them. Those committees look at know what's going on in the industry because they work in the industry, and they will bring stuff to us and talk about the issues that are affecting people who work in that particular bit of the industry. And then this goes up the structure. Basically, this is how you make stuff happen in the union. It goes up the structure. But yeah, I won't overly explain all of this, but we also have other committees within that. Some of those are equalities committees to look at equality stuff in the industry and across the creative industries. We also have things to do with like sustainability and all these kinds of things that you can see on there. These are all either separate committees or sort of working groups or that kind of stuff. But anyway, I won't go too far into this. Basically, what you need to know is there are members, they get sorted into branches, and branches are in the London production division and the regional production division bits of the union, which are the film and TV bits of the union. People are organised by craft, by what they do. So, and they're made up of members who work in those specific departments. So, for example, we have a hair and makeup branch, we have a costume branch, we have a special effects branch, we have a lighting technicians branch, all of those kinds of things. All the departments that you might have on a film production or a TV production, we have a branch for them. And the branches organise around the issues that are important for their workers. So stuff that impacts the art department might not impact costume, for example. So they are talking about the stuff that really impacts them. And then the other branches will be talking about what impacts them. Sometimes there's crossover, and in those cases they talk to each other. But a lot of the time they're talking about the issues that impact those specific people, which allows them to move towards change in the workplaces. So they might run things. They might run campaigns. And here are some examples of campaigns we've done. Prep and Wrap is a good example because we succeeded in the very specific aim. So Prep and Wrap, for anyone who isn't familiar with the with the idea of it. It used to be that certain departments, costume, hair and makeup, locations, and a couple of others, would essentially be giving an hour or so at the beginning and end of every day that either wasn't paid or meant that their hourly rate was a lot lower than it should have been. And people quite rightly, specifically in TV, people quite rightly said this isn't right. And so we ran a campaign to say, we need this to change, people need to be paid for this. And the last time we renegotiated one of the agreements, this got taken out. Those departments now get paid an extra hour for any of that work that happens. And then anything over that is paid as overtime. So that was a really successful campaign. That was really great. The more recent ones, Broken Turnaround is the current big campaign that we're running, which is about people getting their overnight breaks. Hopefully you all know this, but if you don't, you are entitled to 11 hours overnight between the end of your shift on one day and the beginning of your shift on the next day, or if it's a night shift that you're entitled to 11 hours overnight break, and that's a legal requirement. That's a requirement under the Working Time Directive. You have to have that, and it's a safety issue. But productions do have stuff in there. We have stuff in the agreements that say that in the unlikely, hopefully, circumstance that you have to break people's 11-hour turnaround, they will be given either paid in lieu of it, or given compensatory rest, so you'll get extra rest that's paid for, all that kind of stuff at the end of the week or at a convenient point. But we're getting so many people that have their turnaround broken that everyone is exhausted, they're worried about safety, and so people came to us and said this is a really big problem. So we're running a campaign on it at the moment, and that is the live one. It's worth having a look. If you Google BECTU broken turnaround, you will find some information about that. We have a reporting form for productions that have been breaking turnaround and all that kind of stuff. So that's a big live one at the moment. And Lives Behind the Lens is about parents and carers in film and TV. Jay mentioned that you've done some stuff with TV Carers Club. We are also in touch with them, and along with a bunch of the industry organisations, looking at how to make things better for parents and carers in the industry. We think that the answer is flexible working, and which will help a lot of people. So we've been talking a lot about job sharing and flexible working arrangements and things like that in the industry. We know these things can work because we have case studies. So this is a long-term campaign. We know it's not going to happen overnight, but we are sort of building momentum and building up things over a period of time. So that's what Lives Behind the Lens is. But all of these were campaigns, crucially, that members came to us and said, this is a problem, we really need help creating noise about this and trying to make change. And that is sort of the power of collective action. So yeah, these were all campaigns we run. They're all worth having a look at if you fancy. Here you go, is Broken Turnaround. This is our annual conference, people holding up their Broken Turnaround postcards. But this is our current campaign. This is what collective action looks like. Is everyone saying say no to broken turnarounds? So I said I'd come back to agreements. We have a few collective agreements. Some of these are not relevant for film and TV, but if we look at the middle two on the top row there, major motion picture agreement and scripted TV agreement, those are agreements that set out your minimum terms on film productions and on TV productions in the UK. Before 2017, those did not exist. So there were no standard terms. People could give you any terms they wanted. From production to production, things might vary wildly. From within departments or within the same production, things might vary wildly. Like one department might have this agreement for overtime, and another one would have a different one because they negotiated it on an individual basis. The point of these is that everyone has these standard terms. It can be better than those standard terms, but it can't be worse. So it sets out things like how night work works, how travel works, travel from unit base or travel outside of the UK or travel, whatever, how you're paid for travel, how you're paid for overtime, all sorts of other things like that, the maximum number of hours you can work in a week, how broken turnarounds should be dealt with, all that kind of stuff. Those are in there. You may have seen it if you've had a contract that says you're working under a scripted TV agreement or something like that. That's there. It's worth reading it. It's some of it's a little confusing, but it's worth having a look at. And we can advise on things like that. If you're on a production that is under one of those agreements, we can give you advice on those if you're a member of the union. And then I mentioned the tax guide. I keep mentioning the tax guide. I think it's very useful if you're freelance and you don't understand stuff about tax. I think it's very helpful. But we've also been involved in things like the BAFTA and BFI anti-bullying policy, because unfortunately bullying is still quite a big issue in the industry. We will help people with bullying cases if anyone has stuff like that. On a production, we can help with that. We can help advise you about what you can do or how to report or any of that kind of stuff. But we've also been involved with BAFTA and BFI in developing those policies. The same goes for, so the welfare policy is a template policy that productions can take on wholesale and be like, oh, this is how we take care of people's welfare. And the diversity action plan is about what it says. It's about it's a plan to sort of get greater diversity in the film and TV industry, basically. We also have a commercials action plan, a diversity action plan. And then rate cards, I think, is the next thing I'm going to talk to you about. Is it? Yes, it is. So rate cards. Rate cards are something we produce in each branch, so for each department, basically. They are usually just for TV, drama and film, because they base them around the agreements that I was talking about just now, the major motion picture one and the TV drama agreement, scripted TV agreement, it changed its name. They are based on research into rates paid and fairness. So we'll sometimes get productions saying, oh, you just pulled these numbers out of the air. We didn't. They are from surveys to members to say, what were you paid for this role most recently? Or what's the average you've been paid for these roles over the last 3 jobs or whatever. And then we also take into account things like inflation, fairness. Some branches will look at parity across departments, saying, well, this department do something quite similar to us and their rates are much higher. So why is that? And we should have a look at maybe making ours similar. They are, yeah, like I say, they're updated every couple of years, sometimes once a year, depends on how much data there is and how many people fill in surveys and stuff like that, but usually once every couple of years or once a year to reflect inflation or cost of living changes or changing rates or any of these kinds of things. And I think this is crucial. They're produced by branches for branches. They're not people like me who don't work in the industry anymore coming along and going, well, I think you should be paid this much. They are not. They're based on research. They're created by people who are working in the industry, and it's all done through research. It's not sort of just going, oh, I quite fancy being paid this much. And I think they are very useful, especially if you're just starting out. You can have a look at them and go, oh, that's the kind of amount I should be charging for this. When I first started in the industry, I had absolutely no idea what to charge, and when people phone me up and said, what's your day rate, I would go, this much, and they go, great, cool, that's far less than I was going to pay you. So I think these are really, really useful ways of like going, okay, here's a baseline. They are recommended minimums usually on the rate cards. It's worth having a look at them for the department you work in, but usually they're recommended minimums. So here's an example. I know it says it's from 2023, but I think it's a useful, it's set out quite clearly, so I usually use this one. So up here you've got the budget band, and this is for TV. Those are the budget bands that are set out in the scripted TV agreement. So that's up there, and then over here you've got the role, and this is just one page of the hair and makeup one. It goes further down. There's more roles on there. Obviously, there's not just juniors and trainees in hair and makeup. There's lots of pages for it for all the different roles that are relevant. But yeah, it tells you sort of your hourly rate, what you would get for a 10 plus 1 hour day, and then a 10 plus 1 plus 1, which is what I was talking about earlier with prep and wrap. That extra plus 1 is the extra hour that's paid. And yeah, if it's a 50-hour week, if it's a 55-hour week, obviously, well, hopefully it's obvious that if you divide the 55 one by 55, you'll get the hourly rate, and it's check that kind of thing. But there's all that information on there. Some of the rate cards also will have information about box fees or stuff that's relevant to that specific department. You know, if you have to do a lot more driving around or that kind of stuff, if you're picking up props, or if you're in the art department and you're doing a lot of picking up of things, that kind of stuff might also be on the rate card. Depends, varies by department, but they're worth having a look at. There is a more up-to-date one for hair and makeup, but I've just used this one because it's very clear. What else am I going to talk to you about? Tax and PLI. So tax guide for freelancers, I've mentioned it several times, is worth having a look at. So we have a thing called BECTU Extra, which is public liability insurance and personal injury insurance. It runs from January to January every year. And if you are a member, you have to be a member of the union to use it, but it is only £40 for the year, and it is tailored to the entertainment industries. Basically, it's run for us by an insurance company. They are the people who hold it, but we sell BECTU Extra membership, which entitles you to those things. So public liability insurance and personal injury insurance. So if you have an injury at work and you want to take a claim, you can come to us if you're a member of the union, and we will deal with that for you, or the company that provides it will deal with it for you. And similar with public liability. So that's worth having a look into. It will be more expensive if you do it elsewhere, but it's worth saying that if you join it halfway through the year, it still runs to January. So it's not what most people do is they take it out in January, but it's still, I think it's still cheaper even if you only do half a year. My public liability insurance used to be like £200 or £300, so even if it's half a year, it's still cheaper. Anyway, so I just wanted to give you some examples of some of the things the branches do that are not rate cards and that are not the agreements, because the agreements are negotiated by people who work for BECTU who have experience in negotiations, but they are also negotiated by members. They go into the negotiations because they know best about what they need in their industry and in their specific departments. So this is a thing that the hair and makeup branch did. It is called the Trainee Skills Passport, and it basically sets out a bunch of skills that would be useful to have if you are working in hair and makeup. This one is a makeup page, but there's also stuff in there about digital skills. There's obviously hair stuff in there. There's all sorts of pages. It's quite a long document. It's very useful. The idea of it is that when you go onto a job, you take this with you and you look at the things that you don't know how to do or you haven't had that much experience of, and you ask, you say, is there an opportunity for me to do this on this job? And what you do is you see those columns there. It says not applicable, but and it's you've watched someone else do it, you've done it together with them, and then you've worked on your own. And the idea is that you then get that signed off by someone who's supervising you to say you've done those things. The reason they did this was that they noticed that people were not necessarily keeping track of the skills that they knew they had, but also were not keeping track of the stuff that they weren't so clear on or hadn't got so much experience of. So the idea with this was that you could go onto a job and say, I haven't on my last one I did this, but I haven't ever done this. Is there an opportunity? So that you could build your skills basically over your career and show when you went onto another job that you have done this thing because you've got it signed off by somebody. And the idea was to build up your skills on that basis. So that's one of the things they've done. Who else have I got on here? SFX. This is one of the branches I look after. They have this grading scheme, which is basically about safety, about saying, I have this much experience, I have done this training, I've been signed off by all of these supervisors to say that I'm safe and I have done this much work. It's and then it's a list that we hold on the BECTU website of special effects technicians and how long they've been in the industry. And people, employers can look at it and say, I need an SFX person. Oh, this person has been in the industry for this long. They've done these jobs. Great. Okay, I'll take that person. And it's a list on our website. It's also, we have a similar one for riggers, and there's also a GRIPS scheme as well. And unrelated to jigs, but the same thing. I work with the intimacy coordinators branch, and we have a registry that's the same kind of general idea. These are all about safety and knowing that the people who you're hiring have got a certain level of competency. Post-production, we have a post-production branch. They are called the Rough Assembly, and they do all sorts of things, but this is The picture there is a picture of a thing they used to run that was called Post Fest. They did a day or a couple of days actually, sort of mini conference of panel discussions and seminars and networking opportunities and career development stuff. Lots of branches do these kinds of things. They run events where people can meet other people in the industry. They can listen to experts talking about stuff. They might have discussions about things. They ran an event last night that was about the impact of AI on post-production, which was the latest in sort of a series of things they were doing. But yeah, the branches do all sorts of things like that. They'll organise talks and stuff like that. Cool. That's the three examples I've got for the moment. There's lots of other branches, but those were just a few I thought I'd give. So the advantages of being a BECTU member, hopefully I've given you some idea of the advantages of being a BECTU member. But yeah, so these are all the things. I said I'd come back to equalities laws, which I'll mention now. So see in the top and the middle there, it says we pay your legal fees. If you are a freelancer, the chances are, this is assessed on an individual basis if you have an issue, but the chances are you are probably covered by the Equality Act, which, if you don't know, is a piece of legislation that covers people against discrimination in the workplace. And if you are discriminated against at work on the basis of things, for example, like race or disability, and you're a member of the union and you come to us and you say, this happened to me, we can take it to our legal team who will assess whether you have a case that's worth taking. If you do, we take the case for you, and you don't have to pay for a lawyer. So that is something that people find very useful. We take cases for people all the time. So that's what it means by pay your legal fees. We can give contract advice, like I said earlier, like if you get a contract and you read it and you go, oh, I don't know about that clause, you can email us and we will give you advice on it. Personal injury laws that I mentioned. I think I've got the same thing on here a couple of times, but it's because I think it's very important. So collective power, getting your voice heard, organising support. These things are all related. This is about, you know, not feeling isolated, because I think as freelancers, as people working for yourselves or that kind of thing, you can feel quite isolated, can feel very on your own. And I think one of the most important things about being a member of a union is that it gives you that collective power, that group of people who are fighting for the same thing as you. We also do a lot of training and webinars. That's various things. Training, we do training on union stuff. So like on how to organize, we do training for reps so that you can understand better how to be part of the union and also support other members of the union. But we also do training on specific things, like we do first aid courses, for example, and they're usually cheaper if you're a member of the union. We also do things like temporary electrical systems training, also cheaper if you're a member of the union. And then branches might run their own stuff. They run mentoring schemes sometimes. So for people who are newer to the industry, they'll get people who are members of the union who've been working in it for a long time and can sort of go, oh, this is a good idea, maybe do this, or, you know, that kind of stuff. What else have I got up there? Yeah, negotiating industry agreements, like I mentioned, that's members and staff at BECTU coming together to say, this is what we want this to be like, these are the changes we want to make in the industry. Networking events, yeah, branches will run networking events. We had one last night for the animation and VFX branch, for people to come and chat to other people working in the industry, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, we can give employment law advice, advice on stuff that's happening at work, anything like that. And access to industry stakeholders is like, we have connections with lots of people. So like film and TV charity, for example, BAFTA, BFI, people like that. We talk to them a lot about various things because we all have similar feelings about things like bullying and harassment in the industry and stuff like that. So if for example, like a branch wants to do something like a piece of guidance or something, and they want someone from BAFTA to read it, we probably have contact, that kind of stuff. Yeah, all that kind of thing. So that's just a bit of an overview of the advantages of being a member. How much does it cost, you say? If you're a new entrant to the industry, or it's your first, you know, you're in your first year out or that kind of stuff, it's just £5 a month for your first year, and that gives you access to everything. And then after that point, it's a percentage of what you earn, but you report what you earn to us. So you tell us, I earn this much, and then it's a percentage based on that. And then there's a ceiling, like there's a maximum. But yeah, that's how much it costs for the first year. So an overview of joining BECTU. New entrant is £5 a month for the first year. There's a link to hundreds or thousands of people in your craft. There's advice networks. There's these people who have been in the industry for a very long time, all that kind of stuff. We have this list called Early Bird, which is only available to members. It is a list of upcoming film and TV productions, and usually with either a name or a contact information for somebody working on it. Can tell you all of the things that are coming up, so you can sort of go, oh, I can't see having a go at working on that, and it gives you somebody to contact to talk about it. Legal support and active support from BECTU officials if you have problems at work. BECTU officials are people like me. Your emails come directly to a person, and we will assess them on we'll help you on an individual basis with anything like that. Training, like I mentioned, all sorts of training. There's also a back catalogue of training that we've done in the past. We, over the last few years, have done a lot of online training, a lot of webinars and stuff like that. There's a whole back catalogue of all the stuff we've done over the last few years, which are useful for all sorts of things. There's stuff on there like CV skills and how to build a website and all that kind of stuff, but there's also lots of other sort of more industry specific stuff. Public liability insurance, accident insurance through BECTU Extra, but we also have a financial advice service that's related to us as well, like for other questions about finances. And this is the one that I think is most important, a voice in your world of work as a freelancer, because as I said, like, you can be very isolated as a freelancer, and being part of a branch in the union can help you to feel less isolated, be part of a whole, be part of a change in the industry. So that's me. I'm done almost exactly 45 minutes, which is what I said it would be. So I had one question in advance, which I will answer now, but then have a think if you've got any questions. I'm going to look for the question I have in advance, which is over here. So yeah, someone asked, being a production assistant in scripted production, I'm often confused when would be a good time to join a union. I've not had a job for some time, but if I end up getting regular work, I have no clue when I should be joining a union. Any clarity? So I usually say to people when you're working is a good time to join the union. An important thing is that if you have an issue at work and you are not a member of the union, we usually can't help people with something that's happened before they joined. So say you had some issue happen, and then you joined the union that day that thing happened. So I don't know, you're given your notice, or I don't know, something happens and you join on that day. We usually won't be able to assist you. But if you're a member from the beginning of whatever contract you're on, all that kind of stuff, then we can assist you usually. Or what we can assist you if you're a member. But also I think that if you're able to keep up your membership, I think it's a good idea. Continuity of membership is a good idea. So when you start working again, I would. But then there will be stuff that you can access, sort of networking events and stuff like that are member only. So you could join before that. I usually say to students that it's more worth joining once you are in the industry and working, because until you've had a job, then maybe it's not so useful. But yeah, so the not very simple answer, but definitely when you start working, very good idea to join, either just before or like the day you start or something like that. I would advise, because yeah, if you have any issues or you have anything you want to ask people about, we can't help you if you weren't a member when the thing happened. And if you're about to start a job and you've got a contract and you've got questions about it, then you need to join in order to ask us those questions, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's the answer to that question. Any other questions?
Feel free to use the raise hand feature on your little toolbar if you want to answer via voice, or if you don't fancy talking, you can, use the chat function to ask any questions.
What always happens to me when I'm in these kinds of things is I go, I've never had a question in my life, got no idea. if you have questions afterwards, then I'm happy to answer them. Jay has my email address if you want. Always comes to me afterwards. I'm like, oh, I should have asked that. But also, there was a lot of information, so you might just be digesting the information, which is fair enough.
I'll keep because we make like proxy emails. So I'll keep the proxy email open for a while just to forward it all to yourself, which is bectu@setstarters.org.uk. So thank you very much for that talk, Jess. It's
You're welcome.
very informative. And yeah, so thank you for joining, everyone. We've got no more webinars lined up after this at a minute. So we'll try to get someone from the camera department to do a talk with us, but keep an eye on our websites and our website and our events page and our newsletter if when that comes about. So I'll stop the recording now. Once we're going.